Alrighty, so first things first, can you explain your personal and professional background and what inspired you to run for U.S. House District 1?
Well, my name is Dax Alexander, and as far as my personal background goes, I am a product of East Texas. I was born here at the former Trinity Mother Frances Hospital, grew up down the road on a dairy farm in Martins Mill, Texas. Highly recommend, great way to grow up. I think that I kind of blame that a little bit for the reason I'm not a big fan of huge cities. They make me feel a little bit claustrophobic, to be honest. I need the open spaces, and I love the trees out here.
Right.
I graduated at Martins Mill High School, where I went my entire life. Went to school on a Pell Grant to UT Tyler, so I was pretty disappointed to learn about the funding cuts to that. Everyone, I think, it would have been, the money from that grant really alleviated a huge burden off my parents, and it's disappointing that other people aren't going to get that same opportunity. After going to UT Tyler, I graduated with a degree in computer information systems and then got a job here in Tyler after that. I've been in the area ever since. Currently work from home remotely elsewhere because it's difficult to find tech jobs out here in East Texas, actually, which is something that I think that we could change. I have a very personal perspective on that. As far as my political career, I guess you could say, and kind of what inspired me to really get involved and want to run for office. I am a volunteer locally with the Smith County Young Democrats Club, where I serve as vice president. I serve as the vice chairman for the Smith County Democratic Party as well. My role, volunteer role, in the last 2024 election, me and a few other people really tried to focus hard on finding candidates to run for offices, because democracy doesn't work if you don't have a choice. I think we're seeing some of the effects of that in Texas. We've been a one-party state for 30 years, and we're very much on the decline in certain areas. I think we need some difference.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So one of my roles in that was looking for candidates. We failed to find a candidate to run against Nathaniel Moran in the Congressional District 1 race in 2024. I felt very kind of guilty about that. Felt like we kind of let people down as the party, not giving them that option to vote for. So I was motivated by that. I think a little bit of a personal failing to get involved in this. I also had a little bit of personal experience listening to Moran speak and hearing how he wants to represent East Texas. And at a town hall he actually hosted here locally, I was very disappointed by what I heard. And I would say being at that town hall was kind of the final nail in the coffin that said, all right, you're going to do this. We need better representation than this. I would say specifically, there was three kind of key things that came up in that town hall that really kind of got under my skin a little bit. One of them, someone asked about Doge. He gave his full-throated support of Doge. Hindsight, we've seen that they ended up costing more money than they saved, and we lost a lot of funding for things like cancer research, children's cancer research, feeding people, so stuff that was, I believe, necessary for a good and prosperous world and country. I didn't appreciate, the support of that. And, on a side note, according to some whistleblowers, Elon may have stolen a lot of our data too. So kind of security risk there that he didn't really seem to care about. That concerned me. He gave his full support for the January 6th pardons, which, at the time I disagreed with strongly. Also, in hindsight, we see that didn't really play out well for us either. I think at last count, up to 6 of those people that were pardoned have now been charged with some variation of a child sex crime. And he gave his full support of those pardons, and that's not the kind of representation I think we need. And finally, he was asked about specific budget cuts to food pantries and organizations that feed hungry families. He assured everyone that those hungry families could just be patient and wait for the funding to come back, and I think that was a stellar lack of empathy to sit there as someone who does not have to worry about where their next meal comes from and tell people who do to just be patient.
Right.
So seeing that really inspired me to say we deserve better here in East Texas.
Okay. And you're one of 4 Democrats running in the primary for the U.S. House District 1. What distinguishes you from the other Democratic candidates, and why are you the strongest choice to face incumbent Nathaniel Moran in the general election?
I don't want to sound too arrogant on this. I do believe strongly that I am the only candidate out of the four of us that has a chance at winning in November. The work we're putting into this, I wouldn't be going through this level of effort. My team wouldn't be going through this level of effort to achieve this thing that we thought was impossible. We really think we have a chance at this in November, and I told my campaign team early on, I said, listen, right now there's not many people in this race. If someone else, announces later down the line that we believe really has a strong, better chance at winning, we'll concede, throw in all our support behind them and go all the way with them, because we want our best chance at victory. Right. And I'm still in this race right now because I still believe that I am that best chance at victory. I've been involved most recently, most heavily, out of our candidates with local Democratic politics. I'm familiar with the people here. I'm young. I think that there's a big hot button issue in volunteer circles right now is how do we get more young people involved? And as someone that has kind of gone through a refounding of a young Democrat group here in Tyler and Smith County, I've got firsthand experience with getting young people involved, and we've seen some great growth in this group. And I think that a big part of a lack of voter engagement from young people is they keep seeing these same people run over and over and over again. I think that John Cornyn may be Senator of Texas for literally my entire life. That's kind of ridiculous, right? We need turnover for government to function correctly. So I think that if you really want some young people involved in voting, you should give them someone young to vote for.
Right. And District 1 has traditionally leaned Republican. Why do you believe voters here are ready for a Democrat to represent them?
I respect the intelligence of our voters out here in East Texas. We're good people, we're moral people. We've got a church on every corner out here. We're a very faith-forward people. We have a strong Christian faith out here, a strong Christian tradition out here. And more people are waking up to the fact that our president does not represent those values. And our current representative here cares far more about his endorsement from his president than he does about any of the people that he's supposed to represent here. And I think we've seen that based on his voting history. The amount of times that Trump is referenced in the Epstein files, 40,000 in the redacted versions that we know about, and according to congressmen who have seen the unredacted versions, he could be in there a million times. Most of his appointees come from, you can find also referenced in Epstein files, and not just casual references, direct, actionable references. They've delivered us the Epstein administration. People are noticing this. People were promised. He campaigned on releasing those files and kind of getting some justice for that. And right now, we've seen that they are actively protecting the pedophiles on those lists. Whether you believe that he was personally implicated in it or not, the way that the Department of the government's releasing these files, they're obviously covering for something. They haven't even released all of them as they were supposed to yet. And people have noticed this, and people aren't going to stand for it anymore. In addition, speaking to the decency of the people out here, we've got a president now that just flagrantly will truth because I think that's what you call it whenever he posts something on his platform, will just truth out the most flagrantly racist images. And at the time, they tried to blame it on a staffer. Like they said, oh, a staffer put the Obama's faces on the body of apes. Like that was, first of all, that's a weak defense. That's just trying to shed responsibility. But then not even a week later, his press secretary makes the very strong statement that if it comes from the president's Truth Social account, it comes from the president himself. So these are things that people can't ignore any longer, and they're not going to stand for it. We're good people here in East Texas, and we know better.
Okay. And I know you spoke a little about what you saw as issues when you heard Moran speak. What issues do you see affecting people in District 1 right now, and how would you address them if elected?
So I think I did kind of touch on some of these earlier, and I think that we do have many. I think we have a good handful of issues that need addressing. If I could address one for this specific question, I would say that the district needs some better access to health care, and better access to health care that you can reliably know that you can have without breaking the bank and without having to worry about choosing rent. Tyler has access to some good hospitals, but that is not the truth for the rest of the district. The rest of the district is very rural. Some places you could be described as medical deserts. You have to travel too far to get to a hospital to get the care that you need. I think that that's due to a lack of funding. We saw some of the Medicare cuts result in some hospital closures happening. The funding, you can tell yourself that you feel good about eliminating waste, but I don't think that there is waste there to be eliminated, and we saw from the funding that those hospitals lost, which resulted in them being able to serve less people. We have to have the courage to invest in our hospital system and give our doctors and nurses the tools they need to succeed and the facilities they need to serve people out here. My own parents, they're getting older. One was my dad is a retired dairy farmer. Mom worked for a school for a long time. The system's not designed to take care of people like that. We've got a very incredible tradition out here of self-reliance, but we've also got an incredible Christian tradition out here, and that calls people to heal the sick. And so that's one of the reasons I think we've really strong. We need some sort of universal health care, Medicare for all option.
Okay. And immigration and border security remain top concerns for many Texans. How would you approach immigration enforcement, and what reforms do you believe are necessary at a federal level?
I would approach it with some human decency. Barack Obama's administration, I believe the numbers still show this, that they deported more people than Trump came close to deporting, and they did it with dignity, and they did it without theatrics, and they did it without causing huge scenes and without executing Americans in the street on video for no good reason. And there are some criticism I think you could still lay on his administration for the way they handled it, and I think that we've seen now that ICE is not serving anyone but terror at this point. They, as I said, after America saw the murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and saw the lack of accountability that followed, I believe in one of the instances, the shooting officer was, escorted out of the state basically by federal agents to escape any kind of investigation or any kind of sense of justice or any kind of accountability. In Good's instance, I believe instead of investigating the shooter, they actually opened up an investigation into her surviving partner. These things can't be allowed to continue. We can't keep funding that, and the amount of funds that we have pumped into ICE disproportionate to things that we could actually need. That money could be much better served. Instead of giving signing bonuses to ICE agents for putting on a mask and pulling over anybody that they think is brown and doesn't belong here, we could be giving signing bonuses to teachers, people who actually help our next generation. I think we've also seen that there are, we do obviously have an immigration problem. We do have to have a strong border. We don't achieve that by building some wall to, funnel money into the right people's pockets. The crony capitalism that we often see. I think some of those wall projects that people raise money for didn't even build anything. We just saw a lot of money get funneled into, dubious actors. I think that we could actually invest in technology that works. It's 2026. We've seen what works and what doesn't. We can invest in smart technology. We can also provide a pathway to citizenship for our friends and our neighbors that have been working alongside us for years. One thing I've learned this past year, more than anything, attending protests and getting involved in these communities, is it's the pathway to citizenship is impossibly complicated depending on who you are and where you're coming from, and we have to make this process in a way that serves people and in a way that serves people fairly and justly, and also honors the people that are coming through currently at the border, seeking asylum and trying to go through the process, filing it the way it currently exists as it is. But there has to be some way. We can't just make people criminals by saying they don't belong here when these people are our friends and our neighbors and they contribute to our economy. Their kids go to school with our kids. They play on the same sports teams. These are good people.
Okay. Texans have several industries affected by trade policy. What is your position on tariffs, and how do you believe current trade policies are impacting District 1?
So tariffs are one of those things that I feel like Congress has kind of given up its role on. It's one of those things that when I talk about accountability, I mean that we need a Congress that actually steps up to its role and checks and balances. And we're just, right now, Congress is just letting the president do whatever he wants on that. And there wasn't really any kind of accountability at all. If he thought that there was a tariff to be had, he was going to put a tariff. This gave us a lot of chaos. It was really hard for small businesses to keep up with how much to charge for things, because the tariff would be declared one day, the actual thing that went on paper was different, and then the thing that was tweeted about was different still, and then someone else ruled it was illegal, and then someone defined it. It was going all over the place. It was hard for news agencies to report on it, and depending on where you get your news from, it was hard to keep up with what the most current iteration of the tariffs were. Today we saw that the Supreme Court actually declared that those tariffs were illegal, and that's going to be a whole nother can of worms. I believe in the decision, they actually allowed for corporations to sue for that lost revenue from the tariffs, which means that's going to be a big taxpayer-funded handout to these corporations that, in my opinion, may not need the help, and not going to pass those savings down. The prices aren't going to go down after they get their reimbursement for the tariffs. In addition, back to that accountability thing, the president went on to do a press conference shortly after the decision and asserted that he was still going to stick with his 10% global tariffs in spite of the Supreme Court ruling they would just find another way to do it. That's lawlessness, and that's the kind of thing that Congress needs to step in and say, this is illegal, you cannot do this, you are not a king, you do not get to make the final decision on everything. We are a democracy, and we need to start acting like it again.
Okay. And similarly, voters often express concern about federal spending and the national debt. What principles would guide your budget decisions in Congress, and where would you advocate for increased investment or spending reductions?
I think we could get some money back to government by undoing some of this damage caused by the big beautiful bill. A lot of those tax cuts there to the upper 1% and even the more elite of the 1%. I think there's a lot of funds to be recaptured there. I think that our corporate tax rate could be, that's where I see money coming from for that one. As far as where the investments need to be made, we have to invest in our people directly. We have to invest in our schools directly. I've met too many people who have kids going to school somewhere in the district where they have great teachers working there, but they don't have enough teachers working there. Some parents who have special needs children, the schools don't have the personnel to address the needs of these children. They've got good intentions. They'll take a coach who has a free period and they'll have them, watching a special education class, special needs classroom. But that coach may not be trained in the way that he should be to address some of the needs, some of the very unique needs that run across the whole gamut of ways you can address, and they're not being met. And these are things that these are fixable things. We just have to put the money where it belongs, and I believe it belongs in our hospitals, in our schools, healing people and teaching people.
Okay. And I think you answered my last question. One more thing I would add is, if you had anything else to leave with voters, what would it be?
I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Texas has been a one-party state for a long time, practically definitely my entire adult life, practically my entire life. 36 years old. I think it's 30 years Democrats haven't won a statewide election. We've reached a point of stagnation in this state. The things that the conservatives and Republicans in office are trying, they've been doing the same thing for a long time, and it's not working. They're not serving the people. They're serving their special interests. They're serving their billionaire sugar daddies. They've lost the plot. They have lost sight of what's important. We have to try something different. And I think that we need it. We need something different here in Texas, and we have to have the courage to try.
Okay, thank you for sitting down with me today.
Thank you.